Ever wonder where you can live in Houston and still have a commute of 30 minutes or less? As someone who crisscrosses this city for showings, I've learned that there's an art to it, and it's not always about where you live, but it's when and how you move. We help busy professionals find the right home without wasting time in Houston traffic. After 20 years crisscrossing the city, I know which neighborhoods make a 30-minute commute possible. And if you're relocating and ready for more space and don't want to sit in traffic, let's talk strategy, and this video is for you. I have figured out that the time of day matters more than distance. As a realtor, I'm in my car all the time, and as you can see, I'm there. It's pretty much my office. And there are times when I have to get across the city, and it's, do I sit on that stretch of 610 between I-10 and 59? Is that going to be faster, or is it faster to use the side streets? It really makes a difference between being on time and being late for appointments. There are apps that I do use. There's Waze, there's my Apple Maps, and I would be lost sometimes without them. They are not always right though, and that's where knowing the ins and outs of areas of what streets, what main streets to stay off of, and also the side streets to cut through, from cutting through Fagan up to Westcott, can actually save me time versus going all the way up Shepherd to get to I-10 if I'm in inner loop. And so let's kind of talk about more areas that would be a 30-minute commute. I had some physicians that were commuting to the med center, and they really loved the Heights. They loved the walkability. They loved the trees and the vibe that the Heights had. But what they found is that getting there was an easy 30-minute commute in the morning. However, in the afternoon and early evenings when they were leaving the hospital to get home for dinner, it was not a 30-minute commute. And it was pushing 40, 45 minutes. And that was just not the life that they wanted to live, or where they wanted to prioritize. So prioritizing that 30-minute commute was so important. So we switched our focus of where we looked, and we started looking in Southampton, Westview, and Southgate, which had kind of the vibe, right? You have older homes, you've got walkability, and definitely the proximity to the med center to have that commute be really 15 minutes or less. So those are great areas to have that 30-minute or less commute and have the life you want to live and be home for dinner with your kids. I had another buyer who wanted charm and walkability, and they were commuting to both downtown and out to the energy corridor. And we started focusing on the Heights because it offered both of that. That could be an easy 30-minute commute to downtown or out to the energy corridor. And then depending on the times of day, as I was mentioning earlier, that the freeway can be very busy, that there's ways that you can do back roads down Long Point, down Hempstead Freeway, if you're trying to connect yourself from the Heights to get out to I-10 to head west. And then there's, plenty of other streets that will weave you around to get to downtown if hopping on 45 from the Heights is not the best highway to use. And so the Heights really offered a great option for a shorter commute to get to both sides of town. And let me think, another area of town that could be a 30-minute commute would be, and this is where time of day makes a big impact on it. A young family who've lived in inner loop, and so they're used to a real short commute time to downtown, and they didn't really want to give that up of how much time they got to be at home or how quick that is. So trying to stay within that 30 minutes really became important. However, they wanted more space, bigger yard, and strong public schools. And so when they were looking at areas, they really wanted to focus on Memorial and kind of the Memorial West area just outside of the Beltway. But would this be a 30-minute commute? And that's where talking about what time do you go into the office? Are you leaving before 8 a.m.? Are you leaving at 9 or 8:30? Are you sitting in that prime traffic time of people trying to get to school and to work? Can really impact that 30 minutes. And so if you're having to be in the office before 7:30 or 7, easy, no problem. You could probably get from Memorial West to downtown within 20 minutes. Push that time to 8 to 9, you're pushing that 30 minutes commute. Now, I will say in the afternoon, it's a different story, and that's where they had to figure out if it was worth it for them to go past that 30 minutes that they were looking for to live in a neighborhood that had good schools, sense of good community, and more space that they needed. And that's ultimately what they did. It added an additional 10-15 minutes depending on the day because they were leaving at prime time, like 5 o'clock, 5:30. And that's kind of where that balance of 30 minutes or less, depending on the time and how you're moving. So that would be another area to consider. That would be a 30-minute or less kind of a commute. And people ask me all the time how I get around Houston so fast. And it's because I do rely on freeways between 9:30 and 3:30 pretty regularly. I found that that's kind of the sweet spot to not have to deal with school zones, to not have to deal with all the stoplights, and I can take it for a portion, jump off and head down to where my appointment is, and then I get to avoid kind of those major interchanges that can be choke points. It's definitely a rhythm, and at least for me, I feel better if I'm going to be in traffic that I'm constantly moving versus sitting in traffic and like inching along. One of the things I would recommend is that when you're looking for your commute and considering where to live to have that under 30-minute commute, that you, one, are paying attention to how close you are to those major freeways, and also where are those school zones and how does that timing kind of affect your commute times that you're driving. There's been some times where I've sat in a line of cars and I'm like, why is this not moving? And it's because, oh shoot, I'm in the carpool line waiting for parents to pick up at River Oaks Elementary, so on San Felipe, which, knowing how those school zones work will also help save you some time and frustration. And then also some of the best things about living inner loop is that there's more than one way to get where you're going. I've been out in the suburbs and there's only one main road to go from the freeway into the neighborhood, and you can sit, everyone's leaving work and everyone's sitting in that line, and you can just sit there forever. It may be 4 or 5 lanes wide, but nobody's moving. And that's what I find as a benefit to being inner loop and trying to keep that commute under 30 minutes is that you've got freeways, you've got main thoroughways that are streets, and then you have kind of the back roads or back streets that you can weave around and cut off sitting in traffic as much as possible. And also make sure that you're considering when you're actually driving. So going back to that timing part, are you leaving at 7:30 or are you leaving at 5:15? So yes, in Houston, it is spread out, but it doesn't always mean that you have to waste hours in a car sitting in traffic. And with the right neighborhood and some strategy, a 30-minute commute is totally doable even at rush hour. So hopefully you feel good about all the options that you have and areas that you can live to have a 30-minute commute inside Houston and not spend your life in a car sitting in traffic. It comes down to finding the right neighborhood and a strategy, and you can have that 30-minute commute and have it all. If you found this helpful, and if you're weighing lifestyle and location, check out my next video. I'll link it down below. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment if you have any questions about your commute. I'd love to help. And if you found that secret road to help keep a commute down, please let me know. I won't tell, I promise.